What's up? I'm back. Um, this video is going to be more for like boomers who don't really understand new like internet culture as much. Because basically I see like a lot of people conflating different groups together that are maybe tangentially tied together only through the internet or whatever, but people just really don't understand, or it seems like most people just don't understand like what the different groups like messaging is and ideas and stuff like that, especially when it comes to younger people. And like, so that's why I'm showing this chart first. This chart is from the Washington Post, and this is actually an article where the person was like checking the article, and they say that the article is good. They're saying that the data is good, and then they checked the data, and they're saying that, there's more of like a give and take, but basically the data is accurate and that it was actually published by the Washington Post. So you can see here from like the 90s to 2018, the male virginity rate went up 20% from 7% to 27%. And that's just the male virgin rate. And so the amount of men, under the age of 30 that may have only had sex, one time or three times, or they might have only had one girlfriend for like a week or something. Like, we don't really know. But we do know that it's getting increasingly difficult for young men to find partners, or even just women that are even interested in spending any time with them at all, unless they're in this like upper echelon of men who basically are getting all the women. Now, to me, this, when we're talking about recent events, I'm not going to really say anything too much, but I'll just say, that guy, I'll just call him that guy, basically. And, people are claiming that Nick Fuentes is somehow responsible for this because he had disagreements with Charlie Kirk or whatever. I mean, it's possible, but it's kind of a huge stretch. Like, it's a pretty big stretch. And, it seems like this, with a lot of the stuff that's going on with young people, this is like a big cause of it. Like, in all the different groups are just responding to this in different ways. Like this, they're basically just responding to this chart in different ways. And so like you can see, because there's a thing called "Are We Dating the Same Guy?" And this is basically a series of Facebook groups. There's also, they have an app now, and basically women are all dating the same guy, and they're actually getting together and talking about the guys that they're dating, and it's basically the same guy. They're all dating the same guy, right? So that's like a big part of the problem, right? So then the second part of the problem is the conservative like half of it, and like I think that it might be important, an important detail, that the guy was from a conservative household, because conservative men are being faced with like a specific difficulty where they're trying to maintain the conservative value, but it's also in a very modernized world of female preference. And so, therefore, if you're asking a guy to be conservative these days, you're basically asking him to remain a virgin until he's like around 30, 35 years old. Like, you see, so it's like there is a kind of like a pressure on men, obviously, like the natural pressure, but then you also have the conservative, if a guy wants to be a conservative, like for instance, Nick, you know, he's not an incel. Like Nick is not an incel because he's purposefully abstaining from sex, though he's voluntarily celibate. So to say that he's an incel is pretty much incorrect in any way, because someone that's an incel is someone that is actively pursuing sex or has actively pursued sex or relationships and had no luck, which I'm not aware of Nick doing that. He's abstaining from, relationships until he's in a position where he can get married, which is a conservative position. And so he is kind of like an example of what conservatives are asking for. So when you refer to people like that as incels, it's insulting, and it's just not correct, because that's what you're asking for. You're asking for guys to stay virgins till they're like 35. But yet the women, they're all dating the same guy already starting at like 18. Right? So basically, a guy has those two choices really when they're in this like virgin category, where they're not like at the like upper echelons of, sexuality or attractiveness to women, right? They can either go kind of more like in the Nick Fuentes direction, where they're working on themselves and building community with men and trying to like basically do everything else that guys do besides have sex with women, and do it in a positive way. And then, you've got the other people who are more, I would say they're more disgruntled, when it comes to the realization that this is like the new normal, that, a third of men will be virgins until they're 30 or possibly even longer. Some of them might never get into relationships. So seeing that, and seeing the societal preference for like female activities, just for females in general, there has been a debate going on in the incel community for quite some time of whether or not you should transition to being a woman, not because you're gay, but simply to receive female privilege. Simply for that reason, right? Not so it's just very difficult to explain to a boomer. Like when you're saying that the guy is gay, like in my, experience, gay guys like men. So when a guy's going with a trans and he's being told that a trans person is a woman, right? You're already getting cognitive dissonance there, right? Then you're a young man, you're a virgin, then you go ahead and do something with your, trans partner. Then you're really, you're really in there, because now your cognitive dissonance is like doubled up. Not only do you now believe that, like the first part, but now you're in there, and you're kind of like, so now you got to double down on your belief, right? And then someone like Charlie Kirk is basically like representing, I would say, what most men are like looking for, a stable family, like a attractive wife, some healthy kids. I think that's what most men in general are looking for, and they're being pushed down into this like lower rank of society where they become virgin, like a permanent virgin, right? And everybody, you were young, and you know what that feels like. You know what it feels like when you're like, oh, everyone else is getting a girlfriend, or and you're like wondering what's going on, and you have a lot of hormones going and all that stuff. So saying all that to say that basically, to just make a blanket statement, oh well, he was gay and they're trans and they're getting brainwashed by it. It's a little bit deeper than that, because there is like this overarching thing where, especially like if you want to be a conservative man, which is more popular these days among men, you know, the conservatives are pressuring you to get married, but you can't get married till you're like 35. And then you're also supposed to, be like chaste or whatever on top of that, to prevent abortion and all that other stuff, which it's a good thing, but when you're thinking, okay, but now I've got to wait till I'm like 35 and then all the women around you are dating the same guy, right? So you can see here, this is like one of the better videos that I watched on this topic, which is the Incel to Trans Pipeline and Inside Mari, where this guy's kind of talking about I forget what they call him, like a show. I think it's a shoujin novel. It's like a Japanese comic book, basically. And he's talking about, they have a lot of those themes in those comic books, kind of like the male to female transition thing and stuff like that. And, and this guy, like, he really explains the whole phenomenon pretty in detail. Like, if you want to watch this video, I can see his name is Co's cat. I don't know how to pronounce that, but you can see it on the screen. And so this thing is like a real phenomena. Like, it's not just something that can be like hand waved away and, oh, these guys are losers. Cause it's almost like half of young men these days. So it's like basically to them, it's normal. If you were born or you were dating in the 90s or even before 2008, it's like a completely different world. Like, it's a completely different world for these young guys, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating them, and some of them are taking a more positive avenue, and some of them are just getting frustrated, and some of them are going trans not because they're gay, not because they're not actually gay. And that's what you have to get into your boomer mind, is that they're not gay. They want, because if they were gay, then they would want to date men. And that's why they're dating trans, because they actually want to be dating women, right? But they're being told that it's okay. They're being told that it's okay to date a trans person, right? And, when you're a young man and you want to, find out what that's like, who knows what you'll do? Who knows? We've all seen American Pie and stuff. So it's like, it's not that far off from that, basically, really. And then, okay, he's probably taking some type of, medications. I don't know. This is all hypothetical stuff that I'm talking about. Basically, who knows what the actual, like, cause is. No one knows. But you can see why people are even, like, attacking Nick Fuentes, because basically people can't understand the conceptualization of a guy that's not an incel, but who's voluntarily celibate, and someone who's celibate, because in action it's the same thing. You're just not having sex with anyone, but the difference is like your mind state about it and how you feel, about other people about it, right? So, when you're looking at this stuff, it's kind of like you guys just have like a older view of what's going on, because you were dating in this area where basically everybody that tried, that's what women used to say around in the 90s. It was like, if you just had a car, you had your own place, and you had a job, right? That was the like requirements, right? It wasn't like you had to be Elon Musk and freaking and like Mike Tyson at the same time to even get a date. It's like, talk about getting married. It's like ridiculous, right? So, that's part of it. It's part of it is the conservative pressure on these young guys and not recognizing that, a large percentage of these guys is going to be very difficult to like meet those standards. You know, not saying it's going to be impossible, but if you're just going to run around calling basically like half of the young male population incels and using it as an insult, it's not really going to go well, because now you're talking about like half of the male population under 30. It's not just like an isolated small group of people who are like, oh, the incels. It's like there are people that are incels that they don't call themselves incels. And also, a lot of the people that are incels, quote unquote, that, post on those type of like boards and stuff like that, they're either left wing or they're not political. Some of them are right wing. Some of them are, Christian. Some of them are Gnostics. Some of them are atheists. It's really more about this experience of, being a male virgin, like an older male virgin, than any type of like political affiliation or anything like that. So, it is a real thing that, people are deciding, that they can't get women, and they're, deciding whether or not they should go trans or not. But you do have to keep in mind that, they're not all what you would call traditionally like gay. Like they're not actually gay. And so you can see how that could be even more frustrating or more confusing, causing cognitive dissonance if you actually are a straight guy, and then people are kind of gaslighting you and telling you, oh, well, trans is the same, it's the same. And everyone around you is like, head nodding, yeah, it is the same, it's the same, it's exactly the same. And then once you do it, you're in. And then it's kind of like, I don't know, like what you would think after that, You either have to go like fully in, and like anybody that says like a trans is not a real woman, you're gonna flip out, or maybe you're just frustrated that you did it now or whatever. Who knows? Who really knows? But I think to just jump to the conclusion that, oh, some weirdo sex freak, right? Because you're looking at it from like your cool guy, like super rich, conservative boomer like attitude, right? But in reality, it's like at least 30% of men under 30 are virgins, and it's probably closer to like 50%, right? So when you're saying, oh, these loser incels and stuff like that, it's just normal now. It's just normal for guys to just, women, meh, don't have time for it, or don't have the money for it, not good enough looking for it, not tall enough for it, not funny enough for it. It's like I got other stuff to do. It takes the amount of effort that I have to put in to even pretend like I'm getting a woman is more than, it's going to take. So it's kind of like I'm saying, it's just something to keep in mind. Like this is definitely a social factor to keep in mind, because that's one thing, right? All these people are young, right? They're all young, right? We're not getting a lot of like 80-year-old, like, I mean, the guy that went after Trump, but that was completely political. But this type of stuff, I'm talking about this type of stuff, where these people are just snapping or whatever, and they're all whatever. It seems like this is definitely a factor, and it's not just the like drugs, probably a combination of the drugs and this. So, just something to think about when, people are thinking about this topic, and what could possibly lead someone to this. Like again, I said, check out this video, the Incel to Trans Pipeline and Inside Mari, because this goes really deep into the like psychology of like why someone would choose, even though they're straight, would still choose to go trans or go with a trans person. So that's the video, and have a good day, and I'll talk to you later.